Hi there guys, welcome to the latest episode of the Cryptoverse, your regular dose of news and commentary on Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies and blockchains. My name is Chris Coney, I'm the host of the Cryptoverse and the founder of Cryptoversity.com, the online school where you set the price to learn about Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies and blockchains. You can find out more and subscribe to the Cryptoverse at Cryptoversity.com. Now on to the news for today, courtesy of Bitcoin.com. This article was written by Wendy McElroy, and it reads, "The death of ICANN. Is this blockchain's chance for internet freedom?" So let's see what this is going to say for itself. ICANN is the organization that keeps track of who owns what domain name, and that's in America anyway. In the United Kingdom, I believe the company is called Nominet, but you have to have a central database of who owns what domain name. So you can have all the different registrars like GoDaddy and 123reg and so forth, but if you didn't have a centralized database keeping track of everything, then you could register the same domain name on GoDaddy and then re-register it again on HostGator, and you wouldn't really know who owned it. So that's the purpose of these centralized databases. So this article says that the context in which the internet operates may dramatically change or not. At issue is who or what will control the non-profit Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers, ICANN. So it's ICANN, the Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers, which assigns and coordinates unique identifiers such as IP addresses on a global basis to create a single connected internet. It is responsible for the global coordination of DNS route, IP addressing, and other Internet Protocol resources. ICANN does not directly control content, except through, say, denial of applications, but it does regulate access and traffic. It is currently overseen by an obscure agency in the US Department of Commerce, the National Telecommunications and Information Administration, the NTIA. Now, maybe my knowledge is inaccurate here because I thought that ICANN was strictly for the United States, and each of the representative countries had their own centralized version of ICANN. But let's see. So it says here, ICANN's internet monopoly comes from a contract with the US, through which it became an instrumentality of government, and so it's exempt from antitrust laws. I see. So it's allowed to have a monopoly because it's exempt from antitrust laws, and it's been granted that by the US government. The contract expires at midnight on the 30th of September. And there appears to be no desire on the part of the Obama administration to extend it, meaning that ICANN could lose its prized antitrust exemption unless it partners with another government agency or semi-government agency that offers a similar privilege. How interesting. So once the monopoly has expired, it means that it's open for competition. That's what it means, which is why this article says that this could be an opening for blockchain. So the article was, "The death of ICANN. Is this blockchain's chance for internet freedom?" Very interesting. So because ICANN is a database, that's all you need. It's a database of all the IP addresses, all the domain names, and all the people that own those domain names. That's a database, so it can be decentralized on a blockchain. So beautiful. Now then, the article goes on to say that no one is sure what will happen, and ICANN is providing little guidance on this. There is no detailed blueprint for the stewardship transition. The two ICANN committees that will handle the shift were only just announced. Predictions of what will happen range from nothing at all to the end of the current era of free speech on the internet as well as free enterprise. Two extremes, I would say. The predictions hinge on who or what is expected to control ICANN in the future. All right, so, okay, it's not that bad. Just because this contract expires midnight on 30th of September, I doubt very much will happen immediately unless someone has been waiting for this moment and has been preparing for it, you know. It does seem to be a good opening to replace this centralized ICANN database with a blockchain. But then again, things like the MadeSafe network and whatnot have kind of got that built in. The MadeSafe, they kind of espouse it as the internet the way it was supposed to be. So with privacy and all that built into the very core of the model. Now, a Wall Street Journal article entitled "An Internet Gateway to the UN" opens, quote, "When the Obama administration announced its plans to give up US protection of the internet, it promised the United Nations would never take control. But UN control is the likely result." Close quote. The Wall Street Journal's assumption is based on the administration's apparent lack of a plan to continue ICANN's antitrust exemption. The article observes, quote, "Authoritarian regimes have already proposed ICANN become part of the UN to make it easier for them to censor the internet globally." Close quote. That's a good point, isn't it? I mean, the Achilles heel of a website is its domain name. So you could, if you could disconnect the domain name from wherever the content was hosted, that's it. You don't have to hack the server. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to do a takedown request or anything like that. You just deprive it of an address, and that's it. No one can access it. An article in The Independent is subtitled, quote, "Foreign governments, businesses, and individual users will have a stake in how domain names and internet protocols function in a symbolic step towards decentralization." Close quote. A symbolic step towards decentralization? It depends who's going to take on the task. The CEO of ICANN is quoted as saying, quote, "The change is actually minimal. It's important symbolically because the US was really a steward for the internet, but for day-to-day accountability, it is minimal." Close quote. Former CEO Fadi Sharad added, quote, "The status quo was no longer sustainable. The prevalence of the internet made it incredibly hard for ICANN to continue doing its critical role under the control of one party, whoever that party is, whether it is a government or a company." Close quote. Yes. Because this is such a critical part of the internet, should it be for profit or not for profit? Or neither. It should be decentralized, and then the profit should be decentralized in the same way that like the MaidSafe network works. It's a good insight that. We can stop thinking in these either or terms. Should it be profit or not for profit? And profit is, when people consider a for-profit company bad, it's because all the money goes to one place and it becomes a monopoly. Whereas that's a moot point if it's a decentralized network. And like with MaidSafe, you can become a farmer and provide resources to the network and get paid for it in equal measure to your contribution. Now, USA Today claims that ICANN could be usurped, quote, "by the Chinese, the Russians, or some combination of governments that are unfriendly to the United States, and it is a possibility that must be taken seriously." Close quote. The speculation is not new. An ominous 2014 headline in The Atlantic asked, quote, "When the US steps back, will Russia and China control the internet?" Close quote. The CEO denies the possibility, but the Wall Street Journal article states, quote, "ICANN already has been kowtowing to authoritarian regimes." Close quote. Presumably, this is a reference to Sharadeh's 2015 decision to assume a co-chair of the advisory committee to China's World Internet Conference. And no one knows what will happen, or whether ICANN will even stay in California, where it has been based since its inception. There are rumors it will move to Switzerland or Singapore. That's interesting. They may actually be good choices, in my opinion, because they've those two places are unique economic hubs that have stable political systems. Switzerland has its own currency, It's an economic powerhouse in that regard. It's independent from the European Union. And those are all factors that I would consider good for this job. However, that becomes moot if it becomes a decentralized blockchain-based system. So several factors complicate the transition from the NTIA oversight. The contract with the Department of Commerce could be extended as it was the 2015 one. The purpose of the extension was to provide a blueprint for a smooth transition. Since no definitive blueprint exists, this could act as a precedent to extend the contract for another year. Congress could block the transfer, though. Breitbart reports Senator Ted Cruz and Representative Sean Duffy have introduced the Protecting Internet Freedom Act, which would prevent the transfer of ICANN without congressional approval. Close quote. The House and Senate bills are still in committee, with the watchdog site GovTrack giving the House bill a 1% chance and the Senate one a 4% chance of being enacted. Members of Congress could sue the Obama administration, as a coalition of groups is urging. The coalition includes Tech Freedom and Americans for Tax Reform. Two policy riders attached to spending bills in Congress prohibited the executive from using tax money to surrender control of the internet. Thus, a lawsuit could claim the Obama administration violated both the spending directive and federal law, and seek an injunction against the transition on those grounds. Well, if ICANN remains or retains its monopoly, even in the short term, it could use the internet as a private bank, even more than it currently does. The quote marks around non-profit in the first sentence of this article arise because ICANN makes a killing from domain names. For example, Amazon acquired .buy for $4.5 million at an ICANN public auction, and Google paid $25 million for .app. Well, this is interesting, isn't it? And also, every single domain name that's renewed or registered in the first place has a little ICANN fee. So without oversight, the plunder could soar. With a de facto monopoly created by its immense presence, ICANN could easily increase the discrimination it has shown in the past. For example, it has denied applications from the LGBT community to establish a .gay domain name or namespace. The spurned applications are now crowdfunding to launch a legal challenge. The discrimination is more than political. 3 times in a row, ICANN has failed independent reviews of its impartiality in accepting applications, especially for top-level domains. Well, that's not good, is it? And that's the beauty of crypto, because you could do this anonymously, and then you wouldn't be able to work out whether it was something that you didn't politically agree with. I mean, even the I'm sure you could encrypt even the domain extension that you were registering, so that even the risk of seeing a .gay domain namespace coming through, you could hide that even, I imagine. What would keep it from denying traffic or other niceties to the likes of Tor or Bitcoin sites, especially at the behest or bribery of governments hostile to them? Question. A 2012 article in TechDirt lamented, "This is just getting worse and worse." After pointing out that ICANN was missing a big and important opportunity by not speaking against governments seizing domain names, we were disappointed to see ICANN release a white paper that was more of a how-to manual for governments on seizing domains. Such practices give ICANN power over content as well. On the other hand, nothing at all could change. Now on to using the blockchain to democratize the internet. The best protection against the monopoly remains competition. The best protection against ICANN is the accelerated development of alternative root servers. Happily, real thought has been given to dismantling ICANN's power of monopoly. NamePros, for example, recommends the cryptocurrency Namecoin. So here's a quote. Namecoin is similar to Bitcoin, in fact, but most of the algorithms and processes are identical. Like Bitcoin, Namecoin keeps a cryptographically secure log of transactions called a blockchain. Domains are actually attached to pieces of Namecoin currency and stored in this blockchain. Like the currency itself, domains aren't controlled by a single entity and can't be seized by government officials. These domains can only be transferred or forfeited with explicit, deliberate action on the part of the owner. Transactions and domain registrations can't be reversed. Once they're in the blockchain, they're a piece of history. Competitors will face the stiff difficulty of ICANN's entrenched position, and there are bound to be false starts. But it is time for a monopoly to fall with a mighty crash. And that's the end of the article. Let's see if anyone has commented on this. Only the author, it seems. Good morning. I'll be dropping by today in order to chat and answer questions readers may have. Best to all. Okay, so she's just inviting people to put questions in the discussion section of the article so she can answer them. Yes, well, final comments from me. If we're going to use this Namecoin system, it would have to be mighty quick, because every time you request a resource from the internet like bitcoin.com or cryptoversity.com, you have to then query the DNS to say where actually is this domain name hosted, and what website hosting system does it point to. So we're not going to host the websites on this Namecoin blockchain, just the records of ownership, registration, the history of it, and then also any DNS records like, do I host my email on Google Mail and then my website on Traffic Planet, for example, or whatever. So the first query is to get that information out of the blockchain as quick as possible, because that's going to delay loading the resource. And then once that's done, then you can actually go to the hosting where the site is and then download the web pages and all that sort of stuff. So it'd have to be mighty quick, is all I'm saying. And I suppose you could cache the information locally on various servers and then just have the Namecoin blockchain as the official resource on that. So that's a call for me to look into Namecoin a bit more. Right, guys, so this has been a longer episode today. This is a long article. Wendy's got a longer writing style than the other authors on bitcoin.com. But it was comprehensive, let's say that. So that's going to do it for today's edition of the Cryptoverse with me, Chris Coney. Thank you very much for listening today. Please go to cryptoversity.com and subscribe to the Cryptoverse. And please support the Cryptoverse by either sending us a Bitcoin tip using the address on that page, by upvoting this episode of the Cryptoverse on the Steam network, by going to the Cryptoversity store, getting yourself a t-shirt with the Cryptoversity branding on, or by buying a structured course if you want to learn some more structured, formal information about Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies, and blockchains. Well, that's all for me today. I will see you tomorrow for the next episode of the Cryptoverse. But until then, it's me, Chris Coney, saying bye for now.